Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Leon Vainstein speaking from Los Angeles, California. Against the backdrop of explosions in Ukraine and Iran's nuclear program, our local affairs seem dull and insignificant. Some, like the fight, let's say, against saboteurs from China who tried to introduce a fungus into the United States, which is actually a weapon of agro-terrorism, attract more attention. But such a small thing as the departure of Whedon's press secretary from the Democratic Party hardly stirred the press. It's evident that liberals won't address this subject, not even with a 10-foot pole, as the saying goes. And for conservatives, there are many more important topics. But I think this is the beginning of the end for the Democratic Party as we know it today. That doesn't mean the Democratic Party will disappear completely, but it will change. And in the very near future, in the next year or two, it will either become centrist or it will turn into a kind of fanatical, militant communism. You all probably remember President Biden's press secretary, Karine Jean-Pierre. She's the dark-skinned woman with curly hair and not very convincing answers to journalists' questions. On Wednesday, that is June 4th, she dropped a bombshell on the party that had entrusted her with a high position to lie daily from the podium on behalf of the president. Well, that is, she was actually required to do the impossible, to defend and explain positions on a variety of issues. A person who hasn't had any positions on any issues for a long time. And he wasn't sure of anything. Not his own name, not where he was, not who his wife, sister, or relatives were. He didn't understand at all who these people were who kept wanting something from him all the time. On Wednesday, she announced that she was publishing a book about Joe's presidency, and at the same time that she was leaving the Democratic Party. Here she is herself answering questions about President Biden's health. This was back when she was still a loyal supporter.
Seeing that people in the White House knew. It seems that people in the White House knew that President Biden was giving up ground, and they were hiding it from the American people. So who ordered the White House staff to hide the president's declining condition?
I know that's the narrative you like, and that's you. No, wait.
10 days, press conferences at the NATO summit. I'm involved in this. There's so much I need to finish. In 10 days, I'll be out of the race.
Okay, okay. You're asking me several questions at once. Wait. First, there was no cover-up. I want to make that very clear. I know that's the narrative you all... Oh, wait. No, you can't even...
Can you say whether you're ready for the president's doctor to come to the podium? Especially considering that he is the president, does he intend to serve out his term? And there have been a lot of questions about his fitness for this position. Some of these questions could have been answered if perhaps his doctor had spoken at a briefing or if additional medical data had been published.
Have you heard the president's doctor?
You almost feel sorry for her in a way. I mean, not really. I don't feel sorry for any of them at all. But as a person, she had to go out to the journalists on the podium every day and come up with something to say.
If I'm not mistaken, while he had coronavirus disease, he was giving his assessment of what was happening, what was going on.
So, after many years of lies to the American people from the White House press briefing podium, the main mouthpiece of the Biden administration, White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre, probably the worst press secretary in recent history, does the unthinkable, managing to surpass even Jake Tapper, the main fraudster in the media. Having decided to write her own expose about the inner workings of Biden's world and what it's really like to work for a president whom everyone knew was already out of his depth. And the point of this story, the point of the book, is that Karine Jean-Pierre reveals she changes parties, leaves the Democratic Party. That's just too much. She declares, as she herself says, that she is becoming independent and that for her, it's over with the Democratic Party. And we've already had some hints about this.
She told Karen she can't take it anymore. These are, of course, beautiful words, but the point is this. She was well paid for her lies. She went from being an unknown journalist to being known all over the world. Even her book interests, Palmyre. And now, when the opportunity arose to sell out her own people for a great payment for a book, full of dirt, of course, because who would buy this book without the dirt? In general, who is the target audience for this dirt or gossip? Well, naturally, at her former bosses, whom she was ready to lick anything she could reach, whatever she could. She even offered to lick. So she quickly jotted it down. I think she had been preparing drafts for a long time in advance, and there are probably a lot of them, which people usually prepare long in advance. It means one journalist made it in time, and maybe someone else did too, but everyone else probably didn't, and the excitement will likely fade. So well, for now, she is still, so to speak, what's it called, trending, and I think she'll sell a lot. If there's a lot of dirt in there, then she'll sell a lot of copies of the book. The main thing now is to start promoting her and telling the most sensational things. But once again, the liberals won't do this. So she is breaking, as she said, all ties with the Democrats. Well, she's certainly right about that. It's a hornet's nest there, or maybe even worse than a hornet's nest. She started preparing for this, it seems, on the day the elections ended, when she realized that the Democratic Party had lost and was leaving power. And as soon as Biden's term ended, that is, at the end of January, she made the following statement.
Look, personally, for me, the hardest thing during these 3 weeks was that I felt a disconnect between what was happening in the leadership of the Democratic Party and how it actually looked. As my former colleague, communications director Ben Leibold said, it was just a firing squad team. I had never seen anything like this before. I had never seen a party act this way, and I was shocked by what I saw, Karine. Just to clarify, are there other Democrats? Yes, the party is against it.
Biden, yes.
I'd never seen anything like it before. If you're asking me what I saw over these 3 weeks, it was truly shocking.
That is, the last 3 weeks when the rats were running, biting, and hating each other. She really didn't like them. She was just looking for something to be offended by, something to say that would outrage her. What outraged him were the last 3 weeks. That is, from January 1st to the 20th, so to speak, when another president was sworn in. But to lie for 4 years, confidently answering journalists' questions, picking topics, completely departing from the truth and from what she supposedly swore to do, to tell the truth, and nothing but the truth.
Let's clarify. After she lied to our faces for years about Biden being the most intelligent and hardworking president in history, when it really mattered, when she was working for us, when she was being paid by taxpayers, she had no problem lying. But now, when everything has come out, she decides, why not sell a book? This is the same lady who called the video showing Biden's decline, his cognitive decline. She told us from the White House podium that these are cheap fakes and disinformation, dangerous disinformation. To claim that something is clearly wrong with Joe Biden, doing this from the White House briefing room.
From the White House, Karine.
Jean-Pierre was the spokesperson for concealing Biden's health condition. Watch.
It looks like there are now a lot of videos that have been edited in such a way to make the president appear especially weak or mentally confused. I'm curious, is the White House particularly concerned that this seems to be becoming a trend and we're seeing more and more of these videos?
Yes, we are, and as I understand it, you all have been calling these videos cheap fakes, which is exactly what they are. These are really cheap fake videos made in bad faith. And some of your news organizations have made it very clear that these right-wing critics of the president have credibility issues, because fact checkers have repeatedly caught them spreading misinformation and false information. And we see this, and it comes, so to speak, from your region, where they are called cheap fakes and disinformation. I'll quote where they wrote about this. How Republicans used misleading videos to attack Biden over the course of 24 hours. And to be fair, even a conservative also condemned this, pointing out the actions. The irony is that several of the latest cheap fakes actually targeted the president for the fact that he thanked the military, for the fact that he thanked the soldiers. That's exactly why they criticized the president. This occurred in Normandy and Italy. And in my opinion, this tells us absolutely everything about how desperately the Republicans are behaving here.
Well, what about you, Zal Davushku? I just completely stopped feeling sorry for her. She's such a typical rat. I tried to say rat somehow, like rat, rattling, yeah, big rat, no. Well, rat, you can't really say it any other way, yeah, the kind that runs from the sinking ship of the Democratic Party. If that's the case, then Karine Jean-Pierre is jumping off this ship, so I imagine that the only ones left on it are either complete idiots, yeah, or those who are so dirty that even if they jump off, they won't be able to wash themselves clean. Well, some of our Russian-speaking bloggers have already gotten themselves so dirty that they won't be able to get out of it. That's why they'll be holding on with their teeth and with every other part of their body. I don't want a one-party system, of course, in the United States of America. But I think the Socialist Party, which used to be called the Democratic Party of the United States of America, should leave this two-party system that we seem to have in the United States and become something like the Green Party, or one of a dozen other meaningless, uninteresting groups of crazy fanatics. Some other utopian idea. Like the idea that if you take what the rich have and give it to the poor, there will be peace all over the world. Or the poor will start working better, and the rich will keep working even though they know they'll just get robbed again. Well, that's, so to speak, typical utopianism, idiocy, and so on. In general, dear Dem Party Tony, how many sighs do you have left? And Tony and the soil and the riot. Soft, wonderful dreams. Bye-bye.